My friends, there comes a moment in every strong woman's life when she realizes she was never the problem. She was just offering loyalty, affection, and consistency to someone who saw her as an option, not a priority. And here's the truth. When someone treats you like an option, it's not just an insult, it's information. It's a reflection of how they value your presence. And once you see that clearly, everything changes. When someone treats you like an option, it creates an emotional imbalance. You're the one who's constantly investing, hoping, waiting for a message, a plan, a sign of effort. And they know they can come and go. They know they don't have to try that hard because you'll always be there. That dynamic puts you on the back foot emotionally. It puts you in a state of constant chasing while they sit comfortably in a position of control. But here's the moment that changes everything, when you finally realize that you get to choose. You're not at their mercy. You're not waiting to be chosen. You stop asking, why doesn't he see my worth? And start thinking, why am I giving so much of my energy to someone who doesn't show up for me? That's where the emotional power shift begins. Most people don't even realize when they're being treated as an option. They confuse breadcrumbs for effort. He might text once in a while. He might compliment you, maybe even show up occasionally when it's convenient for him. But ask yourself, is that consistency? Is that effort? Or is it just enough to keep you hoping? Real effort is consistent. It doesn't leave you wondering. And when a man isn't consistent, he's telling you exactly where you stand in his life, even if his words say otherwise. You have to be brave enough to see the difference between attention and intention. Now, here's where the emotional shift gets powerful. When you recognize that you've been operating from a place of lack, constantly giving, hoping, and proving, you stop trying to earn his validation and start questioning whether he even deserves yours. This isn't about playing games. It's not about manipulating him into chasing you. It's about stepping back into your own emotional center and asking, how do I want to be treated? What do I truly need? Because when you stop prioritizing someone who doesn't prioritize you, your life starts to realign. It might feel strange at first. Pulling back feels uncomfortable, especially when you've built a habit of overextending yourself. You'll be tempted to check in, to send that message, to make it easier for him to stay connected. But every time you resist that urge, you're reclaiming a piece of your power. You're teaching yourself that your peace is more important than his attention. And when he feels that shift, when he senses that he's no longer the center of your emotional world, that's when the dynamic truly changes. He may start reaching out more. He may even panic because people notice when their comfort zone is taken away. But that's not the point. The point isn't to hurt him or to teach him a lesson through pain. The point is that you're done letting someone else's half-hearted effort dictate your emotional state. You get to walk away, not out of anger, but out of clarity, because your value was never up for debate. And the second you stop fighting for a spot in someone else's life, you start making space for people who see you, choose you, and show up for you. That's the emotional power shift. It's quiet, it's steady, but it's life-changing. There's a very real difference between being an option and being a priority. And the sooner you learn to spot that difference, the better you'll protect your peace, your time, and your heart. Most people fall into the trap of accepting optional treatment while hoping for priority level love. They excuse the mixed signals. They justify the inconsistent behavior. They convince themselves that he's just busy or he's not ready yet. But the truth is simpler than that. If someone genuinely values you, you won't have to wonder. Being a priority means you're seen, heard, and considered. Your presence matters to them, even when it's inconvenient. They don't just think of you when they're bored, lonely, or in need of comfort. You're not someone they reach out to when all their other plans fall through. You're someone they plan around, someone they want involved in their life consistently and intentionally. When you're treated like an option, everything feels uncertain. You're kept on standby. You're almost in a relationship. You're sort of important, but only when it's easy, only when it benefits them. You're not getting deep emotional investment. You're getting scraps disguised as effort. And the longer you accept that dynamic, the more it chips away at your self-worth. The reality is, people treat you based on the standard you set for yourself. If you continue to tolerate being someone's backup plan, then that's exactly the role they'll keep you in. And it's not because they don't know what they're doing, it's because you've made it easy for them to do so. Your availability, your patience, your willingness to stay in the gray area, those things are not being interpreted as love, they're being interpreted as permission. That's why boundaries are everything. You don't just need standards, you need the courage to enforce them. It's not about ultimatums or trying to control someone's behavior. It's about being honest with yourself about what you're worth and refusing to accept anything less. When someone is inconsistent with you, it's not your job to chase consistency. It's your job to step back and ask yourself, would someone who truly values me treat me like this? It's easy to romanticize potential, to hang on to the good moments and to hope that things will change. But the way someone treats you when things aren't easy, that's what tells you everything you need to know. Do they show up when it matters? Do they communicate clearly? Do they make time for you? Or do you always feel like you're fighting for space in their life? When someone sees you as a priority, you feel secure. You don't question your place in their world. You don't overthink every text or reread every message looking for hidden meaning. And that peace, that is what you deserve. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You don't need to audition for love. The right person won't make you wonder. They won't keep you guessing. And if someone can't or won't treat you like a priority, then your next move should be simple. Stop giving them priority access to your life. You are not a placeholder. You are not someone's maybe. And the second you realize that, you start living in alignment with it. You stop settling. You stop hoping they'll change. You stop playing small because you finally get it. Being an option in someone else's life isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their inability to see it. And that's on them, not you. The most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Not the emotional texts, not the long explanations, not the begging for clarity, just silence, distance, space. It's in that space that reality hits the hardest. When you stop showing up like you always have, consistently, loyally, predictably, it disrupts the dynamic. Suddenly, the person who treated you like an option is faced with your absence. An absence is a powerful mirror. It reflects back everything they've taken for granted. We're often taught to believe that communication is everything. And yes, communication is important, but not all situations call for words. When someone already knows they've been inconsistent, when they've seen you pour effort into a one-sided connection, they don't need more of your words, because silence forces a person to sit with their choices. When you remove yourself from someone's life, not with drama, not with revenge, but with quiet strength, they begin to notice the void. The texts stop coming from you. The emotional labor you always carried is no longer there. Your energy, your presence, your softness, it's all missing. And that absence says far more than another conversation ever could. Distance teaches what presence could not. While you were there, while you were accessible, they may have thought you'd never leave, that they could push boundaries, disappear and reappear when it suited them, and you'd always be waiting. But when you pull back, you shift the power dynamic. You stop feeding the cycle. You stop enabling their complacency. And this isn't about punishment. It's about protecting your peace and letting reality do what it needs to do. You're no longer giving them the luxury of your constant reassurance. You're no longer making it easy for them to offer the bare minimum and still keep your attention. And that change, that silence, it's loud. It unsettles people who've grown used to taking you for granted. Let them wonder why you're quiet. Let them sit in the discomfort of your distance, because if they truly cared, they'll feel the loss. And if they don't, then you've just created the space you needed to move on without false hope. Sometimes we over-explain ourselves in an attempt to be understood. But if someone hasn't valued your presence already, more words won't change that. At a certain point, clarity doesn't come from conversation, it comes from consequence. Letting someone feel what it's like not to have access to you anymore is one of the clearest consequences you can offer. Something happens. You begin to hear yourself more clearly. Your needs, your pain, your worth, they rise to the surface. You get to separate your identity from their inconsistency. You remember who you are outside of that emotionally draining dynamic. The distance isn't just for them to reflect, it's for you to heal. This is how you start reclaiming yourself, not by yelling louder, not by proving harder, but by becoming unavailable to what no longer serves you. And if that silence teaches them something, good. But if it doesn't, that's okay too, because the lesson wasn't really for them. It was always for you to remember your value and to stop offering it to someone who never treated it with care. Let silence speak. Let distance deliver the message. Let go not with bitterness, but with boundaries. And trust that what is meant for you will never require you to beg, to chase, or to stay small. Walking away isn't about revenge. It's not about making someone suffer or proving a point. It's about reclaiming your self-respect after it's been stretched thin by someone who didn't show up for you in the way you deserved. When a man treats you like an option, it's easy to get caught in a loop of overthinking, trying to decode his behavior, wondering what you could have done differently. But at some point, you have to realize that your value doesn't diminish just because someone failed to see it. Leaving isn't about punishing him, it's about protecting you. It's about no longer participating in something that's hurting you. You're not walking away to make him feel pain. You're walking away because you finally realize that you've been living in pain long enough. That constant uncertainty, that emotional exhaustion from giving too much and receiving too little, it's been costing you more than the relationship was ever giving. When you finally choose to stop showing up for someone who didn't consistently show up for you, that's not bitterness, that's growth, that's clarity. The pain he may feel as a result isn't something you aimed for. It's a natural consequence of losing someone who gave him too many chances. It's what happens when someone finally experiences the absence of what they assumed would always be there. And that's key. He didn't think you'd walk away. He thought your patience would stretch forever. He thought your heart would always stay open, no matter how coldly he treated it. But love without respect is manipulation. Connection without consistency is confusion. And your healing begins the moment you stop allowing either. Reclaiming your self-worth doesn't come from a big dramatic exit. It comes from the quiet decision to stop showing up for someone who left you guessing more than they gave you answers. It comes from realizing that being strong doesn't mean staying and enduring. Sometimes real strength is found in the leaving, in knowing that you still care, but you care about yourself more now. And when he starts to feel that shift, when the calls stop, when the effort he once ignored is no longer there, it might hurt him. He might feel the sting of your absence, the echo of your silence. But again, that's not because you intended to hurt him. That's simply the ripple effect of your healing. That pain is not your responsibility. You are not in charge of how someone reacts to your boundaries. You are in charge of honoring yourself. You're not leaving to make him regret. You're not moving on to make a statement. You're doing it because you finally realize that staying would be betraying yourself. And that's the moment everything changes. Because when you make that choice, you start sending a different message, not to him, but to yourself. You're no longer available for half love, for broken promises, for almosts. You become unavailable to people who don't know how to value you. And that's when your world begins to shift. People will treat you the way you treat yourself. And when you walk like you know your worth, you stop attracting the kind of energy that thrives on your doubt. But with grace, let your actions speak the truth you've known all along, that you deserve more. And if he feels the pain of your absence, so be it. Let it teach him something, but let it also remind you of everything you finally decided to no longer tolerate. That's not revenge, that's self-respect. And it's the most powerful move you'll ever make. There's a question that quietly haunts many people after they've been treated as an option. Why wasn't I enough? It's the question that keeps you up at night, that fills your head with doubts, that pushes you into comparing yourself to others. You start looking for flaws, overanalyzing conversations, searching for answers in places that only bring more pain. But the truth is, that question is rooted in the wrong mindset. It's not about whether you were enough. It's about why you allowed someone to give you less than you deserve and called it love. The problem isn't your worth, it's the position you allowed yourself to be placed in. You could be the most thoughtful, loyal, and emotionally intelligent person in the world, but if you're offering all of that to someone who doesn't value it, it will feel like you're constantly coming up short, not because they were never equipped or willing to meet you where you are. So instead of asking, why wasn't I enough for him? Start asking, why did I stay where I had to question my value? That one shift changes the entire narrative. It puts the focus back where it belongs, on your choices, your growth, your healing. Because love is not a game of proving yourself. The right relationship doesn't require you to audition. The right man doesn't leave you feeling like you're in a constant competition for his time, his effort, or his attention. He doesn't make you wonder where you stand. He makes it clear. When someone gives you the bare minimum and you accept it, you begin to internalize that as your standard. Over time, it can wear down your confidence, your voice, your ability to recognize what healthy love even looks like. You start settling for crumbs, telling yourself it's just a rough patch or that things will get better. But often, what you're calling potential is really just emotional inconsistency dressed up in hope. That's why reframing the story is so important, because as long as you keep asking what you could have done better to keep someone who never tried to keep you, you're missing the real lesson. The lesson isn't how to become more lovable for the wrong person. The lesson is learning to walk away from anything that makes you forget how lovable you already are. The moment you stop seeing his inability to commit as a reflection of your worth, you free yourself from a cycle that was never yours to fix. His confusion, his lack of effort, his emotional unavailability, that's not your burden to carry. That's his journey. And maybe one day he'll realize what he lost. Maybe he'll grow. Maybe he won't. But by then it won't matter, because you won't be sitting in that same place waiting to be chosen. You'll be busy choosing yourself. You are not someone's almost. You are not someone's second thought. You were always enough. He just wasn't capable of receiving the kind of love you offered. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to stay. But every experience is meant to teach. So rewrite the question. Don't ask why you weren't enough. Ask why you gave someone so many chances to show up when they clearly didn't want to. And then let that awareness be the beginning of your transformation, the beginning of you never settling again. Because the day you stop asking to be enough is the day you start becoming unstoppable. There's a shift that happens when you stop chasing the one who overlooked you, when you finally realize that your life doesn't pause for someone else's indecision. It's that moment when you stop checking your phone, stop rehearsing what you'll say if he comes back, and start remembering who you were before the confusion, before you allowed someone's inconsistent effort to define your worth. That's where your power begins. Not in getting even, not in making them miss you, but in realizing you've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated less. You begin to evolve into the